important to record a follow-up to my previous missive to Jay Dyer entitled Jay Dyer's Two Worlds and Orthodox Christianity's Cosmological Schizophrenia, I believe is how it was titled. We haven't heard a peep from Jay since that last video, unsurprisingly. Let me just remind you real quick of kind of summarize his argument and my response. So Jay's, we were debating creationism, and my argument was essentially that Christian creationism, creation ex nihilo, is dualistic, and that there's no way of bridging the gap between God and creation in the Christian worldview. Jay responded with his analogia, arguing that the physical creation is an analog of the creation that exists in God's mind. So the world in the mind of God acts as a blueprint for, or archetype of, this physical world. And my response was, that doesn't work, because the physical world is contingent and finite, whereas the world in the mind of God would be eternal and non-contingent. So you would still have an infinite division between the two worlds. And we did a little thought experiment there at the time, which I won't go over again. I would highly recommend you go back and listen to that video before listening to this one, and then just come back and listen to this one. But we will do a very similar thought experiment in this video, this time applying it to the incarnation. And what I hope to show is that the nature of Jay's error with respect to the doctrine of creation translates over into the Christian doctrine of the incarnation and actually demolishes the incarnation and, by extension, the Trinity. So let's apply the same thought experiment there to the incarnation. So you have one of two routes you can take. You can argue that the incarnation did not always exist in the mind of God, that it happened in response to a temporal event. It happened in response to the fall of Adam and Eve in the garden. Well, again, that would make God subject to change, and he would no longer be immutable, as is confessed by Christianity. If, on the other hand, you argue that the incarnation always existed in the mind of God, you now have a very similar problem to the one that Jay had with creationism. And that is, you'd have to argue that in some sense, the Logos had a celestial, eternal body that served as the blueprint for, or archetype of, the physical body of Jesus. But now you've got, of course, this very strange dichotomy, this opposition, this dialectic between Jesus' eternal body and his physical, finite, contingent body. So, now, of course, you could try to impose some third thing as that glue that bridges the two bodies. You could say, well, it's the hypostasis, it's the divine Logos who unites the two natures, or unites the two bodies, the celestial body and the physical body. Well, the reason that doesn't work is because the hypostasis, just as much as the energies and the divine essence and the world in the mind of God, or the body of Jesus in the mind of God, are eternal, and infinite and have no they have no connection, direct connection to this temporal existence. So again, it's just the hypothesis in that argument would just become a placeholder for other things like the world in God's mind, for example. So Jay really has no place to go here. He's trapped, he's checkmated. I think he senses that, which is why I never got a reply from him. I do not anticipate I will get a reply from him, simply because there is no counter argument. Maybe I sound overconfident saying that, but I have thought this through for far too long and far too hard to not be aware of the fact that there is no other counter argument to this argument. Knowing Jay, there really was never a debate he didn't like to have. So when Jay avoids you, that's saying something. Now, of course, he'll come out and probably give some excuse as to, well, we don't interact with channels that have less than a certain number of followers or whatever. But if Jay really wants to prove his mettle, he needs to get out of this comfort zone of entertainment where we just entertain my hundreds of thousands of followers by, crushing these idiots, these morons who are really not even qualified to get on there and go toe-to-toe with Jay Dyer. He needs to deal with metaphysical arguments that can not only challenge his position, but seemingly, and in this case I would say definitively, wrecks his entire metaphysical worldview. But I don't think we'll see a response. I could be shocked, I could be surprised and find out that he's planning to do just that. But I think that would be a stupid move, because it's really only going to expose, in an overt way, just how silly his worldview is when it comes down to brass tacks. So that's the essence of my message for today, and I will go ahead and sign off here and pick up with my other series again soon.